Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another podcast by The Real CD Show. My name is Chamberlain Burke.
And I'm Devlin Burke.
And as the month of January winds down, so does our celebration of the band Fall Out Boy. That does not mean we're stopping celebrating. We will always celebrate Fall Out Boy, but it means that this is our last podcast, and next month we're going to celebrate him. So I'll give you a little taste of that. All right, so here's what's going on. We're going to talk today about Fall Out Boy's discography. So going back to our old friend Wikipedia, so that you can go look at this if this is new to you. They do have their discography listed. It's 7 albums between the years of 2003 and 15 years later to 2018. Okay, Devlin, do you want to get us started? The first album that came out, we're going to do these in order because that's just the way we are. Their first album was Take This to Your Grave, which was their debut studio album, and it came out in May of 2003. What are your feelings about this album? Your favorites, your singles, anything about it you like, don't like, whatever?
Okay, so this was the second Fall Out Boy album I bought. The first one was From Under the Cork Tree because I saw them on MTV, and that was the album that was out at the time. And it's very interesting listening to their what I'd like to point out is when you listen to all their albums in order, from Take This to Your Grave to their latest album, Mania, you can really hear a growth in this band. This band really evolved.
In what way? Growth in what way?
They evolved musically, they evolved lyrically. This album is mostly about Pete Wentz getting over the breakup of a girlfriend. So there's a lot of antagonism. There's a lot of anger, and we could have been so good together, but you broke my heart. And then, so for me, it's very raw. I will tell you that it is very raw. It is like the first single, Tell That Mick He Just Made My List of Things to Do Today. That's angry. There's a line, let's play this game called When You Piss Fire. Called When You Catch Fire. I wouldn't piss to put you out. So yeah, he's angry, but it's aggressive, but it's them finding out. This was when Pete and Patrick started working together. Patrick did start writing lyrics, but Pete started to take the process a little more seriously. So this was the start of the Wentz and Stump Inc. Pete Wentz would send Patrick lyrics, and Patrick would read the lyrics and find the music, and somehow put that together into this amazing sound that is Fall Out Boy. My favorite song on this so the main hit, a lot of people will know, is Grand Theft Autumn. At concerts, they refer to it as the national anthem. Pete Wentz will actually tell you to stand for the national anthem, and they perform this song. It's this song and Saturday are the two biggest hits from the record. So, for my favorite song on this one is actually called Sending Postcards from a Plane Crash.
Wow.
So yeah, this album is very angry. It's very personal, and it's the start of this. It's this pop punk anger kind of sound, and then we have the second album.
Now, tell me something. How did this first album lead to a second album? Because when people hear an album, they can relate. Okay, so maybe there's a lot of people going through a lot of breakups at that time, and they could relate to it. But they were able to put out a second album, right? So is the second album different from this anger, or the second album is called From Under the Cork Tree, and it came out 2 years later in 2005. So 2 years later, they were able to put out a second album.
Yes.
Now, what is the difference between these two? You heard this one first.
Yes.
And then bought the first one. So now tell us about how those two relate.
Okay, From Under the Cork Tree was done on a major label. They were signed to Jay-Z's label, Island Def Jam.
Oh.
So, and apparently Jay-Z and Beyonce went to a showcase where they were performing songs from Take This to Your Grave, and Jay-Z said, I want to sign them. So now they've got a little more money and a little more backing. I think, to me, this album lyrically is about it's still that lingering for that relationship, I think.
As a follow-up to what I just said, it talks right here, there's that that the album debuted at number 9 on the U.S. Billboard 200. So it makes it sound to me like the first one was okay. So either it was really, really good musically and lyrically, or a lot of people related because they were going through breakups. But I understand your point about this being on a major label with major backing. And for it to debut at number 9, I think that speaks a lot to their first album.
Yeah. Because to me, lyrically, it's still about the breakup, but there's still that hope that maybe there is someone out there for me. I mean, there's a song. My favorite song on this album is A Little Less 16 Candles, A Little More Touch Me, which is a reference to 16 Candles and the Samantha Fox song Touch Me. So again, this album, it was major backing, again, more pop punk, but there are pop hook choruses. And I think that's what makes it stand out, because it was regularly played on both pop and alternative radio. You could hear Fall Out Boy on right after a Beyonce song, or hear it right after an AFI song on the radio. So there's a little touch of pop, especially in the choruses. The choruses of most of the songs on this album are very poppy.
So musically they evolved already.
Yes.
Got over the breakup a little bit, still had some, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what happened here. But I can see now from what you're saying about the evolution musically and as a band, because the reception is so good. So they're getting a lot of following.
And this is also when the Pete and Patrick incorporated, they were really starting to get comfortable. And I think also on this album, probably starting to trust each other a little more with each other. Because when you write a song, when you write lyrics that are so personal, and you give them to somebody else and say, here, put music to it, that's personal. That's a personal thing. So the trust is starting to grow even more, if not on the first album, more on this one, I feel. And that takes us to the third album, Infinity on High, which was released on February 6th, 2007. Now this album, here's the evolution into pop. It is very poppy. There are R&B influences. They worked with Babyface and Jay-Z on this one. Jay-Z does the intro to Thriller. Babyface produced Thanks for the Memories and I'm Like a Lawyer with the Way I'm Always Trying to Get You Off. There you go. My personal favorite song on this album is, I affectionately refer to it as my pirate song. It's called Bang the Doldrums. It's got this pirate yo. It's very cool. I love that song. This album also has 2 of my favorite Fall Out Boy ballads. There's a ballad called Golden and a ballad called The Afterlife of the Party. Please go check those 2 songs out. I am begging you. Patrick's voice on these songs, it is so beautiful and so haunting. Hum Hallelujah, there's another favorite song of mine is Hum Hallelujah. That has a reference to the Leonard Cohen song Hallelujah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it references that.
I just noticed that this album, their third one, which came out just 2 years after the second one, debuted at number 1 on Billboard's the U.S. Billboard 200, selling over 260,000 copies in its first week of sales and becoming the band's first number 1 album. So they were really getting attention and growing in a way that spoke to more and more and more people. The exposure, the popularity, the music, the lyrics, the energy, the touring, so as now by their third album, they're debuting at number 1. So I think that speaks very, very highly to every aspect of this band.
I agree. So then we go on to the fourth album, and as with most things in life, you have a peak, and then you have a valley. So Folie à Deux, I personally love this album. I think this album is very good. Patrick Stump said something very interesting that makes me listen to it in a very different way. He said of this album, and this is a quote from an interview I heard, he said, I hear me pushing the band in an area it doesn't want to go. And this is ultimately what leads to them taking a 4-year break. This album, This album has a ton of features. There's a feature with Debbie Harry from Blondie. There's a feature from Elvis Costello. There's features from their friends, Academy Is, Panic at the Disco, Gym Class Heroes, Cobra Starship. There's also a collaboration from Lil Wayne. I like this album, and I think the reason is because I feel a lot of people don't know it exists because, well, at the time, Fall Out Boy was trying to get this album released on Election Day, and this was the election of
Barack
Barack
Obama.
Obama.
Yeah,
Yes.
that guy, yeah.
So, and I feel like this album somehow got skipped. It's very experimental. My favorite song on this one is a song called Head First Slide into Cooper's Town on a Bad Bet. Okay. There is an amazing scream from Patrick, but it's not like your normal scream. It's a singing scream, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I love it.
Do you think the collaborations were what he meant by pushing the band in a different way, or do you have an idea? Did he ever elaborate on what he meant by that?
I'm not sure, because when I listen to the album, I don't hear the band resisting. I hear the band going, oh, okay, we're doing it like this. Now, maybe there were discussions in private about, I'm not sure this is the right way for us to go. I'm not, maybe, but I was not a fly on the wall for those discussions. And
I see that this album now slipped. It debuted at number 8 on the U.S. Billboard 200. And so I'm unclear as maybe I'm wondering if the collaborations, you look at the back of the CD and you see collaboration with, and maybe they thought the music was going to be different than traditional Fall Out Boy music.
Maybe, yeah. My other favorite song on this one, it's okay. You're fine. My other favorite song is the opening track, Disloyal Order of Water Buffaloes. So after this album, there is a 4-year break, and in February, I like to call it my Valentine's Day present, Fall Out Boy comes back. Oh, and they do this album, Save Rock. They announced the album, Save Rock and Roll. Now this one again, getting back to what you were talking about features, this album also has features. We have a feature with a group called Foxes. We have a collaboration with the rapper Big Sean. We also have a collaboration with Courtney Love and Elton John. So this album, I love this album. I think, and I remember people were, and this is one of the things that I find. I know I've started like 3 sentences already, but I'm trying to make this a very unique conversation for you guys to listen to. What I find interesting, and I'd like to get talking about collaborations. I just did it again. I know. I'm sorry. Not a lot of rock bands do collaborations, and if they do collaborations, it's usually with someone outside of rock and roll, and I don't understand why. I think rock voices have a range and a depth, and I think 2 rock voices coming together would be very interesting. Now, this album, it was a welcomed comeback. It was a very bold statement. Pete Wentz was saying he wanted to push the definition of rock and roll. And the videos promoting the album, they released the songs on YouTube. And there were images flashing of all their favorite artists that inspired them. So you would see a picture of the Ramones, a picture of Michael Jackson, a picture of Prince, and then a picture of Madonna, and a picture of other artists. And so he was trying to push what the definition of rock and roll was. My personal favorite song on this album, I have 2. I love Where Did the Party Go? And I also love the ballad Missing You. There's a great line in it. Sometimes the person that you take a bullet for is behind the trigger. And I thought that was a good line.
That is a good line. And then you made a statement, I believe it was last week, where you said you spoke about their ballads.
Yes.
And so you just mentioned a ballad.
Yeah.
So what were you saying about that for anybody who may have missed this?
Their ballads to me are horribly underappreciated, and not a lot of people talk about them. Most people talk about, because a lot of their songs are very anthematic. we have great examples on this album. We have My Songs Know What You Did in the Dark. Your favorite song, you said, was Phoenix because it's got the opening from Shostakovich, I think.
Shostakovich, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. It opens with from a movement from a Shostakovich piece. I apologize to every Shostakovich fan. I apologize. But yeah, Patrick's voice on a ballad is one of my favorite things. It's the audible version of a puppy for me. Of hanging out with puppies for me. But yeah, a lot of people. So we have those two anthems on this album, and they're asked to perform those, and their ballads don't get a lot of appreciation. I mentioned ballads on Infinity on High. There's a beautiful ballad on Folie à Deux called What a Catch, Donnie, that features Elvis Costello. And the opening line is, I've got troubled thoughts and the self-esteem to match. There's a lyric for you.
There you go.
And, but yeah, their ballads, I feel, are horribly underappreciated. And so this was a welcomed comeback. And then we go on to American Beauty, American Psycho, which we discussed in the previous podcast when we were celebrating that album's anniversary because it came out on January 16th. Again, Novocaine and Twin Skeletons. Please go listen to those or buy the album and listen to them.
Okay, let's wrap up and go to the last one.
Last one is Mania. It came out on January. We didn't get a chance to do a podcast on that one. We're very sorry. So this one, the band took another interesting turn. I don't want to criticize them because they clearly know what they're doing with their music or the direction they want to go. And I'm willing to listen to whatever direction that is. So they made this way into what some people are calling electro-pop. Now, Young and Menace, I will admit, I am not a big fan of that song. I feel Patrick was straining his voice a little bit. Last of the Real Ones and Hold Me Tight or Don't are two of my favorites. And there's one, it's kind of balladish on this one. There's a song called Church. It's a beautiful song. It's like a loose reference to Romeo and Juliet, kind of. You know, because the chorus is, if you were church, I'd get on my knees and worship you. So there's that saving factor in a relationship. You know, you are my church. Chamberlain, let me ask you about Fall Out Boy in general. What do you, as a mother who I know you have a young daughter, would you, considering now what you know about Fall Out Boy, would you let your daughter listen to Fall Out Boy? And what do you think of Fall Out Boy in general as we wrap up this week of exploring and celebrating Fall Out Boy?
Well, one of the reasons we started doing these podcasts is because I am a mother, and I've come to realize that this music is not what I originally thought it was. When you know something about it, your opinion can change. Fall Out Boy is an excellent band. So this is not a group for a toddler. You know, of course, you have to do everything age appropriate. And so, a teenage group, teenage children could listen to this. They listen to it more for the music, I would think. If they repeat the lyrics, they're just repeating the lyrics. They're not turning into, anything bad. This is a good band. They have good music. They have good lyrics. They have good intent. They're very smart. They do things in a really intelligent way. So I wouldn't have a problem. Like I said, this is not a group for small children, like most groups aren't. And so you have to think in terms of age appropriate, but young teenagers for sure. Because to go to a concert, that kind of thing. I like Fall Out Boy. I've seen them a couple, 3-4 times. I don't remember now, but I've enjoyed every performance. They work for the audience. They are very conscious of what they're doing, and they put on a hell of a good show. And I think they deserve, if you've been kind of toying with the idea of checking them out, please check out an album or two, as we told you, and over the past 3 weeks, and now in reviewing these discs. They're different. So if you buy one album and maybe not, try one of the others. Read up on it and look for something and see if you can find that hook that gets you attracted, because you don't want to miss You don't want to miss this band. This isn't one to miss. This is one to listen to.
I agree.
All right. That being said, happy end of January. February's coming up on us. We are wrapping up our month-long celebration of Fall Out Boy. And next month, February 2020, as Barbara Walters said, we are going to work on the group Hymn. And so we're looking forward to doing that and sharing our thoughts and history with you about them. So for the Real CD Show, thank you so much for paying attention and listening to us. We hope that we've swayed you a little bit to either continue to appreciate Fall Out Boy or at least check them out. I'm Chamberlain Burke.
I'm Devlin Burke.
And have a great one and happy February. Bye.